So I think after the dust has settled, it's fair to say the majority of people prefer the gameplay in version 4.4. Obviously, there is still a small percentage of people who think it was better before, but you can't please everyone. Now, I've also said on stream that it's completely fair if you don't like the game after this update, but I can't think of a single thing gameplay-wise that is worse now in version 4.4 than before the update. However, there were people who loved the update in the first few days who have since changed their tune and starting to say Konami might have sneak patched the game. I don't think there was a sneak patch, but I knew this change in sentiment would happen, as it does for every update, and it's for three main reasons. The first two, it could just be a natural end of a honeymoon period, and secondly, people are adapting to new styles of play and what is possible, so it makes sense that over time, your games are going to be more difficult as people get better at the new update. But the third reason, and it's the most important factor in all of this, is that Konami didn't change the content side of the game. One thing that is absolutely clear when you compare EAFC and eFootball is that one has plenty of content whether you spend money on microtransactions or not, and the other has pretty much zero content for free-to-play players. And even for the players that do spend, they have to spend on average €100 just to get their hands on a legend. And after that, nothing. You don't even have anything to play for with these legends, which isn't inherently a problem. Games like Counter-Strike don't have any progression systems outside of pushing rank. I don't play them, so apologies if I'm wrong, but I assume other popular games like Marvel Rivals, Rainbow Six, etc. don't have progression systems either, and I know PUBG, Fortnite and Rocket League don't have progression systems. They obviously have cosmetics, but eFootball is a sports game, and if you want to offer microtransactions in a sports game, cosmetics aren't going to be enough. And when you have a pay-to-win game, it erodes the inherent competitiveness of the game. If any of those games had pay-to-win elements, they wouldn't be anywhere near as popular unless they added loot-based progression systems like a game like Destiny or of course EAFC has. So when someone like Run the Foot Market picks up this game, sees right away that it isn't a completely sound competitive experience due to the cards having these crazy juice stats, and at that, they are locked behind a huge paywall with, most importantly, no way to work towards them. If the gameplay doesn't hook the player in straight away, and it most likely won't because of the pay-to-win experience, of course they are going to not bother giving it more time. They'll just put it down and play something else, a game that values their money, but more importantly, their time instead. And Nick is a good player. People underestimate his abilities just because he comes from a FIFA background, but when he played eFootball regularly, he was in the top 1 or 200. This is a guy who can sink a lot of time into the game and get good at it, but what's the point? There's nothing to actually do. And if he doesn't love the gameplay instantly, there's no hope for eFootball being able to keep him or people in a similar situation to him. Like, I really didn't like the game before version 4.4. I made it no secret that I've played more EAFC than eFootball in the last 6 or 7 months. And especially after that update around Christmas where EAFC toned down the AI defending. It even got to the point where I started an EAFC channel because I still wanted to stream, but I just couldn't play eFootball all of the time. And FC25 before that Christmas patch was a terrible game. It was intentionally designed to frustrate the player to the point where they feel in order to have a good gameplay experience, they would need to spend money on FIFA points and get a pay-to-win team. But eFootball's gameplay was also terrible. So the key difference was that if I played 10 games of EAFC, I got closer to getting my hands on that Ronaldinho or Zidane that I think is going to allow me to finally enjoy the game, which of course wasn't true. But on eFootball, if I played 1,000 games, I wouldn't even get one step closer to getting a new player for my team. You're capped at a couple of hundred coins a week from events that take about 5 games to complete. And that few hundred coins is a couple of a percent of a pack, but because of the weekly refresh of packs, you can't even properly save for players. You could be waiting 5 or 6 months between versions of a player releasing. In 4.4, Konami released a random coin reward for events. You have a 0.1% chance of getting 850 coins. If you run the numbers, your expected value every time you open this reward is only 12.97 coins. Before the update, we were getting 50 guaranteed in events. We used to get 100 guaranteed in events about a year ago. And you're limited to this reward a couple of times a week. They didn't even bother adding an animation for when you open it. So if you hit that 1 in 1,000 chance, there's no excitement. And the worst part is, you can't even do a 10-player spin. A 10-player spin is 900 coins. This random coin reward should be the reward you get for every single win in divisions. It would take 1,156 wins to get the 15,000 coins needed for you to clear one pack. I've had to check this very simple calculation 3 times because I can't actually believe how stingy Konami are. They absolutely hate the idea of you getting anything of value in this game without spending hundreds of euros. And I'm someone who is fortunate to live in a country where the wages are high. This game has 850 million downloads. What percentage of those players would be even able to afford these packs without blowing away all their money for rent? One of the big selling points Konami made when leaving the yearly release cycle on PES into the continuous game cycle we have in eFootball was that you now got to keep your cards forever. But power creep means that these cards will inadvertently be nerfed. Stats are going above 100 now, and not only that, if you think 90 finishing now is the same as 90 finishing 2 or 3 years ago, you're crazy. 90 finishing used to be the pinnacle, whereas the top finishers now hover around 95. And this is a message I want the big spenders to hear. Stop upgrading. When you bought the first Hullet Ronaldinho Romario over 3 years ago, it was 100 euros to clear the pack, but you justified it by saying to yourself, I get to keep this card forever. But that card now isn't the same as it was back then. And you probably bought the card understanding that a better version would come out 2 or 3 years down the line, and then you'd be happy to spend again. But why would you not even upgrade, side grade from the legend you got 6 months ago? By all means, upgrade if you're happy to spend. I've done it myself recently with Ronaldinho. But I got the first version of Ronaldinho when he came out 3 years ago. And every release since then, I've looked to upgrade, I've had a check, but they are always minimal upgrades, or even worse, just side grades. It took 3 years for them to release a version I was confident would feel different. Which is why I don't understand why some people get every single new card that comes out, because these cards don't substantially change between each release. Yeah, the finishing might be a bit higher, but it's compensated by lower balance. Okay, maybe you think finishing is more important, but important for what? You can't win anything, you can't earn anything from playing.